In the year 1718, in the turbulent waters of North Carolina, the legendary pirate Blackbeard fought his last battle at Ocracoke, facing the British Royal Navy in a brutal confrontation that would seal his fate and become one of the most dramatic chapters in the history of piracy. Attention, first-time sailors. If you are not yet subscribed, subscribe now and answer this call. Together, we will conquer our space and expand our community, making our voice reach more and more people. And if you notice any issues in the narration, it is your duty to go to the comments and let us know immediately. This is an order. At the beginning of the 18th century, piracy was seen as a criminal activity that threatened the commercial and military balance of the great European powers. It was a time when the seas were filled with ships transporting riches and valuable goods, and pirates, who were considered outlaws, saw in these treasures an opportunity for profit. The practice of piracy involved attacking merchant and military ships, stealing cargo, and in many cases, kidnapping crews and passengers to demand ransoms. These men, who were often former sailors or unemployed soldiers, turned life at sea into a risky game of hunting and plundering, taking advantage of the vulnerabilities of vessels navigating poorly protected regions. In the Caribbean, trade routes were the heart of the traffic of goods between the New World and Europe. These routes connected the American colonies to the European powers, transporting gold, silver, sugar, and other riches that were extremely valuable to the economy of the time. England, France, and Spain were some of the nations most dependent on this traffic to maintain their finances and support their military disputes. However, these same routes that drove economic growth also became very attractive targets for pirates, who knew that in each merchant ship there was a possibility of a treasure waiting to be looted. Thus, the Caribbean became a stage of constant disputes where pirates took advantage of every opportunity to attack and profit. Between 1650 and 1730, the world experienced what became known as the Golden Age of Piracy. It was during this period that piracy reached its peak, especially in the waters of the Caribbean and the Atlantic. Several factors contributed to this. The end of wars in Europe left many sailors unemployed, and the increase in commercial flow across the oceans meant that more and more ships crossed the seas loaded with riches. This favorable scenario, combined with the lack of a strong naval presence in many areas, led many to turn to piracy as a way to get rich quickly. This era was marked not only by raids and attacks, but also by the emergence of pirates who became true legends, such as Blackbeard and Calico Jack. Piracy was not just a criminal activity, it was often intertwined with the politics of European powers. Through the system of letters of marque, some pirates received official authorization to attack vessels of enemy nations, turning them into privateers in service of a government. During conflicts, these privateers acted as an extension of their country's military forces, but in times of peace, many of them continued to practice piracy on their own. This connection between piracy and politics made the situation even more complex, as the same pirate who was seen as a hero one day could become an outlaw the next. It was in this turbulent context that some of the most iconic figures of piracy in the Caribbean emerged. Men like Charles Vane, Calico Jack, and Anne Bonny gained fame and fear through their daring actions and their ability to terrorize sailors and merchants. Charles Vane, in particular, stood out for his refusal to accept amnesties and his brutality in combat, while Calico Jack was known for his flamboyant style and his partnership with Anne Bonny, who also became a legendary figure. These stories reflect the spirit of that era, a time when the ocean was a lawless battlefield where only the most fearless survived and left their marks on history. Among these pirates who became true legends, Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, stands out. His exact origin is shrouded in mystery, but it is believed he was born in Bristol, England, around the end of the 17th century. Teach was a skilled sailor, and like many others of his time, he turned to piracy in search of riches and adventure. He quickly made a name for himself in the world of pirates, not only for his combat and navigation skills, but also for his audacity and his ability to intimidate his opponents. In a short time, he gained a fearsome reputation, becoming one of the most well-known names on the seven seas. Blackbeard's appearance was a crucial part of his strategy to instill fear. He was tall, burly, and had a long, thick beard that earned him his famous nickname. During battles, Teach would attach lit fuses to his hat or his beard, creating a truly frightening image as smoke spread around him. This terrifying appearance made many of his enemies prefer to surrender without fighting, just to avoid a confrontation with a man who looked more like a demon than a human being. Blackbeard's ability to manipulate his own image and exploit fear was one of his greatest weapons, something he frequently used to secure victory before a single shot was fired. Teach was also known for his clever strategies to capture ships. Unlike other pirates who preferred direct and bloody attacks, Blackbeard often opted for intimidation tactics, convincing his victims to surrender without a fight. He positioned his ships to surround enemy vessels and made an impressive display of force, with cannons ready to fire and his crew armed and prepared. This approach not only saved ammunition and avoided unnecessary casualties, but also helped solidify his reputation as an invincible pirate. His goal was clear: to dominate the seas not just through brute force, but through psychological imposition. Among the ships captured and amassed by Blackbeard, one stood out as a symbol of his power: the Queen Anne's Revenge. This ship was originally a French slave ship that Teach captured and transformed into his main vessel. He equipped it with 40 cannons, making it one of the most powerful pirate ships of its time. The Queen Anne's Revenge became an extension of Blackbeard's own identity, and its mere presence on the horizon was enough to cause panic among sailors. With this ship, he controlled naval traffic in various parts of the Caribbean, demanding ransoms and tributes from vessels that dared to cross his path. Blackbeard's influence went far beyond attacks and lootings. He played a key role in networks and alliances with other pirate captains, maintaining contacts that guaranteed him support and protection in times of need. These alliances were not only advantageous from a military standpoint, but also helped establish Blackbeard as a figure of leadership among pirates. His reputation grew so much that he became a real threat to the British colonies in the region. Governors and merchants lived in constant fear of becoming Blackbeard's next targets, and this led authorities to take increasingly drastic measures to capture him. His figure symbolized not only the rebellion of pirates, but also the challenge to established authority, something that the rulers of the time were determined to eliminate. With Blackbeard's growing power and his constant threat to trade and the safety of the colonies, British authorities began to feel the pressure to take more decisive action. Governors and merchants lived in constant fear of becoming Blackbeard's next targets, and this led the British Crown to realize that it could no longer ignore the problem. The continued pirate activity was increasingly damaging trade in the Caribbean, causing serious economic impacts and threatening British dominance in the region. Authorities realized it was crucial to act to protect trade routes and restore stability, which led to intensified efforts to permanently eliminate figures like Blackbeard. The British Crown's decision to put an end to Blackbeard was motivated both by economic pressure and by the fear that other pirates might follow his example. Blackbeard was not just a powerful pirate, he was a symbol of resistance against established power and defiance of colonial order. His control over maritime routes and his ability to unite other pirates in alliances made him one of the authorities' biggest targets. The British knew that if they could capture or kill Blackbeard, they would send a clear message to all pirates in the region that rebellion against the crown would not be tolerated. Thus, a plan began to take shape to confront and neutralize this threat. To execute this plan, the Crown appointed Lieutenant Robert Maynard, an officer of the Royal Navy known for his determination and bravery. Maynard was tasked with capturing or killing Blackbeard at any cost, and for this he was equipped with 2 smaller but agile ships that could easily navigate the shallow coastal waters. Maynard's mission was risky, as he would be facing an experienced and feared pirate, but he was committed to completing his task. The preparation for the operation involved the mobilization of considerable resources, including well-armed men and gathered intelligence on Blackbeard's possible hideouts. It was a mission that could not fail, and every detail was carefully planned to ensure success. Despite the careful preparation, one of the biggest challenges faced by the authorities was the limited knowledge about Blackbeard's whereabouts. He had the ability to move quickly and find refuge in isolated locations along the coast of North Carolina, where the geography favored his escape. The shallow waters and numerous islands in the region provided perfect hiding spots, making it difficult for British forces to locate him precisely. Moreover, the local population, often intimidated or even sympathetic to the pirates, did not provide information that would aid in his capture. These logistical challenges required a strategic approach, and Maynard knew he would have to be patient and seize any opportunity that arose to surprise the pirate. With this scenario in mind, Maynard and his men began to plan an ambush. They received information that Blackbeard might be anchored near Ocracoke Island, a strategic location with easy access to the open sea. The island, with its treacherous waters and narrow channels, was the ideal hideout for a pirate in need of a temporary refuge. Maynard decided this would be the perfect opportunity to strike, taking advantage of the element of surprise and the fact that Blackbeard would not be expecting such a bold offensive. The tension grew as Maynard's ships approached the island, and everything indicated that the final showdown was about to take place, bringing with it the possibility of putting an end to the reign of terror of one of history's most feared pirates. Ocracoke Island was a perfect hideout for Blackbeard and his crew. Located off the coast of North Carolina, the island was surrounded by shallow waters and narrow channels that made it difficult for large ships to approach. Additionally, the dense vegetation and complex terrain made Ocracoke a true maze, ideal for evading capture. For Blackbeard, this place offered not only safety but also a strategic advantage, allowing him to move quickly and escape enemy forces. For years, the island served as a refuge for pirates, a meeting point where they could regroup, repair their ships, and prepare for new attacks. Ocracoke's importance to piracy in the region could not be underestimated, symbolizing resistance and freedom for the men who sailed outside the law. And sailor, if you're enjoying what you've seen so far, show your support with a like. This is your task on board. Give that click and strengthen our fleet. On that particular day, Blackbeard and his crew were anchored at the island, taking a moment of rest. They weren't expecting an immediate confrontation, and this was evident from the relaxed atmosphere that filled the camp. Some men were tending to minor repairs on the ships, while others drank and shared stories of past battles. Blackbeard, trusting in the security provided by the island's isolation, appeared unconcerned, believing no enemy would dare pursue him to this haven. This confidence, however, would soon prove to be a fatal mistake. Unknowingly, he was about to face one of the most decisive moments of his life. Meanwhile, Robert Maynard's ships were silently approaching the island. With the support of the information he had received, Maynard knew he had a real chance to catch Blackbeard by surprise. He ordered his men to prepare for the confrontation, maintaining as much silence as possible to avoid alerting the pirates. The tension was palpable as the British ships strategically positioned themselves around the cove where the pirates were anchored. Maynard knew that the element of surprise would be his greatest advantage, and every second was crucial. The night's silence was broken only by the soft sound of the water as his men prepared for the inevitable confrontation. As the first rays of sunlight began to appear on the horizon, Maynard's ships finally made their move. They advanced quickly, closing in around Blackbeard's ships. Chaos erupted immediately. The pirates were caught off guard, and the sound of cannons echoed across the island, signaling the start of a fierce confrontation. The battle began with shots exchanged between the vessels, and cannon smoke soon enveloped the entire cove. Blackbeard, realizing he was cornered, ordered his men to fight with everything they had. What started as an ambush quickly turned into a chaotic battle, with the ships so close that it was possible to see the enemy's faces through the thick smoke. Blackbeard, despite the initial surprise, showed why he was considered one of the most feared pirates of the Seven Seas. He took firm command of his crew, coordinating attacks and attempting to break the blockade set by Maynard's ships. His men, though outnumbered, fought with determination, using every inch of the ship to resist. Blackbeard used his experience to try to turn the tide of the battle in his favor, exploiting every gap in the formation of the enemy ships. But Maynard was prepared, and his crew responded swiftly to each pirate move, maintaining pressure and complicating any attempts at escape. At a certain point, the ships drew so close that the fight became hand-to-hand. Robert Maynard, determined to end the threat of Blackbeard, personally led the attack on the pirate ship. The confrontation between the two leaders was intense and brutal. Blackbeard, armed with his sword and pistols, fought with a ferocity that seemed superhuman. Maynard, in turn, displayed unwavering courage, knowing that this was the decisive moment. The battle between them was marked by swift strikes and desperate maneuvers as the crew around them fought for their lives. The deck of the ship became a scene of chaos where every step could be the last. Finally, after an exhausting struggle, Blackbeard was mortally wounded. Even in his final moments, he continued to fight, refusing to surrender. Maynard, determined to end the threat once and for all, ensured the pirate was dead before ordering that his head be removed. Blackbeard's head was then hung from the mast of Maynard's ship as proof of his victory and to send a clear message to all pirates in the region. The end of Blackbeard symbolically marked the closing of an era, and his defeat was celebrated by colonial authorities who finally saw one of the greatest threats to their security eliminated. Maynard's victory had an immediate impact. The news spread quickly, and the relief among colonists and merchants was palpable. Blackbeard's defeat didn't mean the end of piracy, but it represented a significant blow to the morale of pirates in the region. British authorities used this victory as an example of what would happen to those who challenged the Crown's power. The fear that Blackbeard inspired was replaced by a renewed sense of hope, and the safety of trade routes in the Caribbean, at least for a time, was restored. However, Blackbeard's legacy would continue to live on in stories and legends that would spread across the seas, eternalizing his figure as one of the most feared pirates in history. The death of Blackbeard had an immediate and significant impact. For the British forces, it represented an important triumph in the fight against piracy, a victory that was widely celebrated by authorities and the merchants who had suffered so much from pirate attacks. Blackbeard's head hung from the mast of Robert Maynard's ship was proof of the operation's success and a clear message to all who dared to challenge the Crown. The elimination of one of the most feared pirates brought a sense of relief to the colonies, which saw in his death the possibility of safer times along the Caribbean trade routes. But like many historical figures, Blackbeard didn't simply vanish after his death. On the contrary, he became a legend. The image of a fearless pirate with a thick beard and lit fuses fed the popular imagination for decades. Stories of his exploits, his brutality, and his skill in terrorizing the seas were passed down, often exaggerated, and eventually became part of the folklore of piracy. Blackbeard was mythologized, transforming into a symbol of rebellion and the untamable spirit of those who lived outside the law. His figure was both feared and admired, ensuring that his legacy lived on well beyond his lifetime. Blackbeard's death marked one of the starting points of the decline of the Golden Age of Piracy. With his fall, British authorities felt more encouraged to intensify their efforts to put an end to piracy in the Caribbean once and for all. Harsher measures were adopted, and other pirates began to be hunted down with greater determination. The capture and death of Blackbeard were a turning point, showing that the Crown was no longer willing to tolerate the chaos that pirates had unleashed. This period of repression became a significant chapter in the region's history, marking the gradual end of the freedom pirates once had to sail and pillage as they pleased. In the end, Blackbeard became one of the greatest symbols of piracy in popular culture. He represents the archetype of the wild and fearless pirate, whose legend has spanned centuries and continues to inspire stories to this day. Whether in books, movies, or tales told around campfires, Blackbeard is remembered as one of the most notorious pirates to ever exist. His cultural impact is undeniable, and his story serves as a reminder of the power of myth and how, often, a figure's legend becomes even larger than reality itself. The image of Blackbeard, with his flag waving in the wind, remains alive in the collective imagination, perpetuating the fascination with the world of pirates and their adventures across the seas. Sailor, if you've made it this far, congratulations on completing your mission to the end. Now, let's get serious. If you haven't subscribed from the start, it's time to fix that. Leave your like, subscribe now, and share this video across all your social media. We need your support to grow our fleet and spread our message to even more people. Come on, Sailor, show us what you're made of. And now, another incredible video from our channel is popping up on your screen. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, so click on it and start watching. That's an order from your captain.